Recently, the company Powersports Nation sent me two incredibly rare three-wheelers from the 80s. They're Yamaha TRIKES 250s, which were only made for 2 years, and these two have been sitting for over 10 years. I decided to take the two machines and make one good machine out of the pair. The one looked like it was in good shape, so we tried to start it, but it wouldn't start. So we tore it down and it was in much worse shape than we thought. Using Adobe Photoshop, I designed a custom build scheme for this thing and sourced custom performance products to update the suspension and performance of these outdated machines. We made custom parts to maintain the OEM look of these machines, all while increasing the performance. Parts for these machines are hard to come by, and it's been a long time coming, but we've got just about everything we need. Man, we got parts. We got parts for the TRIKES. So let's get this stuff out of here. This is fresh from Bonehead Performance. This is almost the remainder of the parts. Believe it or not, we still have, I think the wheels are the last thing that we need, but this will get us going here. This one right here is what I'm so excited about. They always do such a good job over at Bonehead packing everything up, making sure everything gets here with no scratches or anything. If you guys didn't see one of my previous videos, I think it's the last TRIKES video, I actually go over to Bonehead Performance and we powder coated the frame together. It's a really cool process if you guys want to check it out. Got our Kickstarter right there. I get this in this mini texture black. It's just got a little bit of a texture to it. It makes it really nice for the Kickstarters because it makes it so that your foot doesn't slip off quite as easily. And we got the grab bar here. This thing is freaking beautiful, man. So this is made by Wicked Metal Designs, my buddy Rob Wicks. It is a drop grab bar. I don't know if you guys can see. It drops down just a little bit. That makes it really nice for picking up the back end of the three-wheeler. Same thing here. We've got the mini texture black on it. Just a little bit more grippy. Makes it nice for any kind of stuff where you might be, you know, needing to grab onto it. This is our now custom headlight bracket. It looks a hell of a lot better now that it's all powder coated in one color. This is the one, if you guys followed me, I think it was 2 videos back, we actually welded these custom brackets on here, put these little stays on here for the headlight bracket. This is gonna make it so that we can use those upgraded forks and triple trees, and it'll still keep that factory look. I made this in the mini texture black as well because I noticed just moving the roller around the garage. This is a pretty heavy duty thing, and it's almost like the front bumper. So you can actually grab onto this and like pull the three-wheeler. If you really had to, you could probably pick it up and slide the front end over or whatever. So I thought mini texture black was the perfect finish for that. Now this looks freaking sweet, man. This is the swing arm. This was a color I think they didn't have in stock, or they were waiting to do a run of it. It just took a while to get here, and I think it's gonna look really good. The color, I don't think I put this in my renderings when I was doing the build plans. I kind of changed this color at the last moment. And it was inspired by the 250R. If you guys know the colors of the 250R when they were from the factory, they had those kind of like gold swing arms. Now I chose a little bit of a darker color. Oh, there's some sand on it. I got some sand. But this color is gonna look freaking awesome. I think it's gonna give a lot of separation between the yellow frame and some of the other parts, but I don't think it's gonna clash. It's just a really, really cool color. Then back here, we've got some more parts. This is to go with the swing arm, the linkage, the wishbone, some people call it. I had this vapor blasted. So typically I have my stuff done by James at Moto Blast. He's kind of my go-to guy. He does excellent work. But Bonehead more recently added vapor blasting to some of the services that they offer. So I did want to give them a test and kind of do a comparison. I would say it's, I mean, it looks every bit as good as Moto Blast does. So I just wanted to test them out. It looks really good. Last few pieces here, nothing too exciting. The foot or toe for our foot brake. Again, another one of those things, mini texture black is a great color for that because it gives a little bit of grip. And then these are a couple brackets for our frame. I think these are the rear fender stays. And I got it in that yellow, Maverick yellow it's called. Now this is the piece that we needed. This is the missing element that has been holding the project up, because the next thing we have to do is build this engine. And I like to have all the parts here. I don't like to start things and then, you know, do half of the project or the engine build anyways. I like to do that all in one shot. So I wanted to wait until I had all the parts, and oh my God, it's that messed up engine cover. So it is not 100% perfect, all right? We kind of took a risk by sending it out and getting it powder coated. I figured that the powder coat would fill in some of the imperfections, and it definitely did. It looks a hell of a lot better than it used to, but you can still see some of the leprosy that it had before. I don't think it's really that big of a deal though. I actually think it looks pretty good. It's gonna give it a little bit of character. Keep in mind, this is not supposed to be a show machine. It's just supposed to be a really nice machine, but it's also supposed to be a runner. It's not 100% factory OEM restoration. I know some people are gonna be like, oh, you Get all that shit repaired, you idiot. Oh, guess what, guys? It's going to work really good, and I think it's going to look really good. Very small imperfection. And like I said, man, it adds character. And now for the incredibly satisfying job of pre-work. Pre-work or pre-build is where I take all of the hardware, get it into all of the bolt holes where it's supposed to go, and build stuff like this Kickstarter, like simple stuff that you can put together. So when it comes time to building everything, it'll go together really nice and smoothly. I'll show you on the frame here. If you look, I've got all of these bolts in their proper bolt holes already, all over the frame. These are all the OEM bolts. If I had them, if not, I replaced them. But I put them all in the OEM locations. I put all of the, rubber bushings and grommets and stuff in place, all of these here, so that when it comes time to build, I'm not fishing around looking for all these bolts and wondering where they all go. It's actually really time consuming. It's one of those things that I usually don't put in my videos, but some people ask me, like, how the hell do I know when I've got these boxes of bolts? This isn't really that many, but you look at some of these boxes of bolts, man, there's tons of them, and it's like, how do you know where they go? So I have a process. I've shown this before, but there's a lot of new people. So we're going to build the Kickstarter together. Basically, we've got the new kick shaft right here. That's what we just opened up from Bonehead Performance. And then we've got the knuckle down here. This is zinc coated. I zinc coated it because zinc is a great coating, but it's not as durable as powder coat. And this isn't really like a friction point. So I also like doing multiple, like 2 tones, 3 tones, all stuff like that. Anyways, so we've got the knuckle here. Then we've got our 2 O-rings, and then we've got a spring and 2 little ball bearings. Now, the reason how I figured out where that stuff goes, aside from just taking it apart, let's go over to our friend Google. And we're gonna go to Rocky Mountain ATV. This is like my go-to spot for schematics and stuff. It just helps out a ton. So it's basically gonna give us a blueprint. We're gonna go to OEM, Yamaha OEM, and then right down here is Yamaha. It's gonna give us a blueprint for where everything goes. We're going to all-terrain vehicle, and we're gonna go all the way down to the old shit, 1985. And YTZ 250N, that is the Tri-Z. Then we're going to come down here. They've got a schematic for everything, and we're going to go to starter. Now, I know where all this stuff is just because I've been fishing around in here for a while looking at Tri-Z parts, but sometimes you got to look around. Now, if you look here, you can see, here's the knuckle. There's an O-ring, washer, and it looks like a clip. And then here's our spring and our 2 balls right there. So it shows, basically how it goes together. If you're mechanically minded, you can just look at the schematic and figure it out. Now, sometimes I'm like, well, what the heck does this washer down here and this clip, what kind of clip is this? So we're going to take this, get the part number, and I'm copying that, and then we'll go to Google, put the part number in, hit enter, and boom. Usually Partzilla has a picture, and then you can see exactly what the clip looks like. So we know it's an E clip, because sometimes in those schematics, like if you look at this picture, you can't really tell what kind of clip that is. So now we know it's an E clip. If you need to, you can order it, or you can look through your parts. And they've even got like a ruler here so that you can measure it up and see, if you've got multiple E clips, you can at least, you have a good shot anyways. So here's all of our new zinc coated parts. Well, actually these are the original parts that I had zinc coated by Motoblast, and I've already kind of set these parts aside. Right here is an E clip. So then you can throw it right next to your ruler and see if it's about the same size as in the schematic, and that's how you find it. And then here is our washer. Really simple process. I've been using that since I was a little kid, even when I would like take my toys apart and stuff to figure out how stuff goes. If you got a schematic, like pretty much, I feel like I can get anything back together. So we're taking a little bit of, this is just bearing wheel grease on our kicker shaft, because this is going to be moving in there, so I want to lubricate it. You see what I'm using? It's just Timekin automotive wheel bearing grease. We've got an O-ring that goes up top. I probably should have put this on before I put the grease. It's probably going to strip it. That's all right. We've got our spring goes in here, and we've got a ball on either side. I'm going to put a little bit of grease to help hold it in place. These damn balls will be falling all over the place. Goes like that, and then this will pop right in here like that. You can check the function. Oh, listen to that. That's satisfying. Then on this side, we've got another O-ring. Goes down here, washer, and then an E-clip. There we go. Man, that is a nice, snug Kickstarter. Shouldn't have any rattles or anything like that. That feels really good. And then probably what I'll do is put just a little bit of black paint on the bottom of this because I didn't realize that that was going to be bare. I would have told Bonehead to coat that as well, but we don't want that to rust. We've also got our bolt right here. We'll get that in place. I'm gonna take a little bit of lacquer thinner, spray it on a rag, and we're gonna clean this portion off that we wanna paint. Lacquer thinner is awesome for prepping stuff for paint. It just cleans like all kinds of grease and stuff. It strips it right off. So there is our surface. Take some frog tape, and we're gonna mask this off. Way to do it, just kind of like drag our thumbnail in there around the edge. Doesn't have to be perfect. Peel this top portion off that needs to be painted. All right, so that's good and masked. And I'm gonna use this Rust-Oleum paint and primer. It's a satin black. This is a nice color because it kind of matches everything. I'll put 2 coats on that and peel it away. So it's stuff like that that can make putting a machine together take absolutely forever because you're constantly stopping along the way. You know, it actually took me like 20 minutes to find the little balls and spring that goes in that Kickstarter. Just couldn't find the damn things. But all that stuff, you know, that adds up. And then you got, oh, well, we want to paint this, and then you have to let it dry and stuff like that. So getting all this stuff ready to rock and roll it's kind of what I've been doing behind the scenes. We've got all kinds of stuff that I figured out. If you guys remember the clutch bumper situation that I had going on, got the clutch bumpers right there. So we're gonna be building that clutch basket. In fact, I think we'll do our clutch basket right now. So here's that brand new $515 basket from Talon. Man, there was just nothing else available. They're the only people that make it. And the issue was, you know, trying to find these bumpers right here. So these are clutch bumpers. They go in these voids. And then what these do, they're called cushions, dampers. And when there's a shock of like if you dump the clutch or something, these dampers take a little bit of that shock and it saves your gears and your internal components. Because if you didn't have that little bit of shock absorption, it would tear apart your transmission. So typically if I'm investing over $500 in a new basket, I will replace these bumpers. Usually baskets come with them. This one, however, did not. I tried sourcing these bumpers everywhere, man. I looked at cross references. They fit a YZ490. Damn it. They fit an older generation YZ250. They just don't make them for anything. I've got some, you know, good connections in the industry at this point in time. Nobody wanted to make them or anything, and I think it's because they've got this steel insert in the middle, so they're probably a little bit more difficult to make than they appear. So anyways, I pulled apart the basket, which, let me tell you what, man, it was not easy pulling this basket apart. Good, Dad. There you can get that one. Definitely, this is designed to be a one-time use, like and replace as an assembly. But you can't buy the assembly anymore. And plus, I want to upgrade to a newer billet basket. So you can get them out. It's just a pain in the ass. And I looked at the bumpers, and they look really good, man. They're still, they feel good. They don't feel like they're worn out. I didn't see any cracks or anything in any of them. And here's why I decided I'm going to reuse them. If we go to our old basket here, and we put this in here. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's a little bit loose. And that's why there was play in this basket. And you can see how easy it goes in and out. So that made it so that there was play, made me feel like they needed to be replaced. But if we go over to the Talon, you've really got to push them in there, and there's no play whatsoever. They don't move out or anything. So I already mocked this up. And with the newer basket and the original bumpers, it's nice and tight. So I'm confident reusing them. Besides, I mean, I really just don't know that I could get new ones of these anyways. All right, let's build this damn thing. So we got our primary drive gear. Then we put our new basket in place. Then we're going to take our bumpers and put these in place. I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube on these first. They already have a small bit of transmission fluid on them, but you definitely want to put these in dry. Just put a little bit around the outside there, and then these just pop in place. Now we'll come around the back side, and they've got these. They're like it's basically going to replace the rivets that I drilled out of there. And these slide in place. They're really, really low profile. If you look at those things, it's going to be tough getting a wrench on there. Then we've got these little flathead screws. You want to make sure the threads are nice and clean. You don't want oil or anything on them because you want to use Loctite on these. Last thing you want is for these damn things to back out. The book recommends 242, which is like a blue Loctite. I'm going to use 272. This is what I use on all my clutch baskets. It's a high temperature red Loctite. This is probably not going to be coming apart anytime soon, if ever. And the last thing we want is for it to back out. So I'm just going to thread these in by hand right now. Really, really small. It's a 3mm, so you can't put too much torque on those. Oh, damn it. I forgot we've got to put this plate on here. Otherwise it would just fall right out the back. Put that in like so. Don't be afraid to use a ton of Loctite on these. You do not want these backing out, especially on a super rare part like this, where if it blew up, it would be destroyed. Now there's no tightening torque in the instructions, but I'm going to attempt to tighten these down to just 6 foot-pounds. Maybe we'll do 5. These are really small bolts. Last thing I want to do is strip any of these out. But we definitely want them to be tight. So there's our clutch basket. Looks really nice. Very nice piece for sure. That's as far as the instructions say to go. I'm going to go one step further though, and I'm going to peen these because anytime I ever use a Hinson basket or a Wiseco, any one of them, they always recommend that you peen them. So I'm just going to, it doesn't hurt to do this. Basically, we're going to take a punch. We're going to hit right near the edge of these bolts. And what that's going to do is it's going to deform them a little bit, and it'll make it so that they can't spin. Well, they will be able to spin probably if you force them, but it'll make them pretty much permanent. Easy to do, and it's just some little bit more reassurance. Ow. You don't need to do too much. You don't need to go crazy with that. Just that little peen there will prevent the bolts from spinning out. And in case you were wondering why we're replacing this basket in the first place, not only did it have play in those bumpers, but if you see the grooves in the fingers, that is not good. It would still work, but those little grooves, when the clutch pack is shifting up and down as you're actuating your clutch, you'll feel those grooves. If you've ever felt a clutch that's not smooth or it's kind of notchy, that's what causes that, and it can cause the clutch plates to bind up and stuff. So it needed to be replaced. You can see nice and smooth on this aftermarket Talon basket. This thing is going to be freaking sweet. Plus, there's absolutely no play in this thing, and the best part is we can take our old basket, just put it in the Talon box, and box, oh wait, don't want to forget the directions. And we'll put some stickers in there. No, actually I want those. And then we'll just button this back up, and we can put that on eBay for $500. Now, since we just did the clutch, we might as well do some other engine pre-work. The biggest thing is going to be this cylinder. So if you guys remember, this cylinder was absolutely trashed. This is the same cylinder that came off of this Tri-Z. I had it vapor blasted by Moto Blast, and then I had a new sleeve put in here by Power Sports Nation. So really we got lucky. LA Sleeve did not have these any longer. I'm gonna put the company up where we found this sleeve. Power Sports Nation actually sourced it. I didn't even know that that company existed, but they had them in stock. Looks absolutely beautiful. It is fresh bore. It is stock. So we're going all the way back to stock, which is what I wanted. And we are going to be doing a couple little modifications to this thing. We're going to hop to the computer in a second, and I'm going to show you what we're doing. Before we do that, though, I just want you guys to take note of this little hole right here. That's called a boost port. And you see the other side, there isn't one. So let's hop over to the computer, and I'm going to talk about some of the mods we're going to do. I felt it would be easier to explain this actually being on the computer because you guys will get a visual. So this is called the Yamaha Wrench Report. I think this is information that came out probably around 1985, 1986 when the Tri-Z was being produced. And it's basically small alterations. I guess you could call them small. It really depends on your ability level. They're alterations that you can make to the porting and other things on the engine that are supposed to make a really significant difference. Now, I have never actually ridden a stock Tri-Z, but from what I understand, like they're not the most crazy performance, and this is supposed to really wake them up. So you can see here, it says phase 1, the cylinder. Now, if you remember that little boost port that I pointed out in the cylinder right here, it says add a boost port. So they want you to take a drill and a porting tool and add that second boost port. That's probably gonna help with flow, specifically with the crankcase, because two-strokes get a lot of their charge from the crankcase gases. So without getting into too much about how two-stroke engines work and porting and all that, basically this is gonna help with airflow. Better airflow is gonna be better performance. So the other thing they tell you is to add 1.5 millimeters of height on the exhaust port. So we'll be doing that as well. And they have some other stuff here too. So if you have the stock exhaust, they actually have a little 10 millimeter section they say to cut out of the exhaust. Now we're using an aftermarket exhaust pipe, so we're just gonna disregard that. And then they have other stuff for the muffler, the reeds, they tell you how to jet it and everything. Now if we continue to phase 2, it says only the serious take heed. Now, the reason I don't want to do quite everything in phase 2, I'm not going to get into explaining what phase 2 is. If you guys are interested, if you go to Google and type in Yamaha Tri-Z wrench report, this will pop right up if you guys want to see all the little specifics. But they have basically like the outcome. It says, for phase 1, it says with the minor porting, headwork, and pipe mods, filter grafting, Boyson reeds, and an Answer spark arrestor, the docile, semi-hard-hitting Tri-Z comes alive. There's no power gain in the slim low-end delivery, but a substantial boost comes on at the mid-range and upper hit, which that sounds excellent. And it says the power remains tractable like a stocker. It just slams harder, much harder, and revs out a good deal further than the showroom model, which sounds perfect. That's what I want. And now, if you go to phase 2, it says, there's no doubt that the mods make a considerable difference in the overall power delivery of the Yamaha. Phase 2 is completely berserk. Every particle of the noticeable bottom end grunting force completely vanishes. So it's saying there's going to be no bottom end. A riled, abrupt attack builds rapidly, slams through the usable mid-range, and surges directly into a walloping strike at upper revs. Whoever wrote this was an excellent journalist. Its pro-like thrusts require delicate throttle and clutch coordination to stay on top of the hostile hit. Experienced pilots will scream in delight, less seasoned rider will shiver and curl up at the explosive light switch type acceleration. Sounds a lot like my Voodoo Banshee. Now, for a four-wheeler, absolutely. For a drag racing four-wheeler, excellent, man. But for a three-wheeler, already the chances of me perishing when I ride this thing are quite high. So light switch power on top of an already tippy unit, I just don't think that's a good idea. So we're going to stick with, I'm going to do a combination of the phase 1 and phase 2. I'm going to be doing some carburetor changes because this tells you to change the carburetor and stuff for phase 2. So it'll be a combination of the two of them. One other step that they recommend doing in phase 1 is shaving down the cylinder head. Now that's something I already had taken care of. They recommend that you take off 0.5 millimeters. By bringing down that cylinder head, we're going to increase the compression, and that should give us a little bit more bottom end, or maybe in this case it'll just maintain the bottom end, but then increasing the exhaust port is going to increase the top end. But a lot of times when you increase that exhaust port size, you lose bottom end. So I think they're trying to offset that with the cylinder head. So this is what the wrench report is. I thought that this would help explain that just a little bit. Anyways, let's get back to that cylinder and get to work. So what I'll be doing is adding that boost port on the other side, going around, cleaning up little kind of messy casting imperfections, like right here, that seam. I'll also come around this side. If you can see on the inside here, there's like this little lip. I'm going to smooth that out. Of course, I'll raise the exhaust port like it said in the wrench report. Probably just smooth some of this out. I don't think I'll go as far as actually polishing it. And then I'll do some work on these transfers as well. You can see these aren't really shaped very nicely. I'll probably shape out the edges of this cylinder a little bit just for flow. And then I'll take the transfers also and smooth these out, and I will match them to my cases. So that's called port matching with the cylinder in here. If you look right here, this is the transfer and this is the mating area. Now this isn't exactly where it sits because the studs aren't in place, but you can see the exhaust, the gases will be in the crank area and they'll go through this transfer port right here. So the smoother that this transition is, the better. So I'll be smoothing that out as well to make those nice and even. Now the way I do that accurately is by taking the cases, put our dowels in place, and attach them. Throw a couple bolts in here just to hold it together for now. Then I'll take the case to the surfacing stone. Depending on the cases, you can smooth out this mating surface where the cylinder goes. Now this one actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. I don't think we're gonna have any issues. But what I like to do is put it on the surfacing stone and just make a couple passes. If there's any like major defects, they'll usually show up right away. So this is more of a check than it is actually surfacing it. Now this is an actual surfacing stone. It's graded, which means that you know, these stones come in certain levels of grading of how perfectly flat they are. Like you might think a piece of granite is just perfectly flat, but it's usually not. You have to get an actual surfacing stone. They're pretty expensive. This one with the table that it's mounted on, I forget what the heck it weighs. It weighs like 200 pounds or something, but the whole thing costs about 500 bucks, but definitely worth it if you're doing any kind of work like this. You can do so much stuff with a surfacing stone. Seems silly, but you wouldn't believe it, man. So sometimes you'll have little things like sticking up on the cases and you can't just straight up throw it down. This one's kind of no exception. I don't know if you guys will be able to see, but there's a raised portion here. So I've got to take it to the edge and kind of just make a couple passes on the edge out here. And then I'll take a look at it, and just by the way that the sandpaper leaves markings on the surface, I'll be able to tell if it's flat or not. Now when you're doing it like this, you got to be really careful to put even pressure, because if you're not careful, the weight of this engine hanging over the table, you can put more pressure on the one side. So you just got to really take your time and be careful with this. So this is after just a couple passes. It looks pretty good. I don't see any major pits or areas of concern. It doesn't have to be 100% perfectly flat. The gasket will fill some very, very minor imperfections, but for the most part, that looks really good. So what we're gonna do is put a gasket in place, and that will help us match up these ports from the cases to the cylinder. I've got gaskets right here. This is a company called Versa. I've never used this before, but it says made in Japan. Made in Japan is usually good. So from what I understand, these are really high quality gaskets. Gotta be careful not to cut the gaskets, because that would be bad. And there's our base gasket right there. This looks like some sort of cork material. They feel like good gaskets. I used to think that gaskets were the type of thing that you just literally find the cheapest one that you can possibly buy because they're all exactly the same, but not the case at all. Cheap gaskets, either one, they don't fit right. Two, you can make them work, but getting them to, you know, work properly and put like RTV and shit on them, it's like not even worth it. You might as well just get good gaskets. They seal better, they fit better, they make your life easier, and it's like a few dollars more. So what we'll be doing, like I said, is putting this in place. So how we get this in place properly is we're going to use our cylinder dowels. These brand new dowels pop in place. Man, it's amazing how easily these dowels pop in place. Removing them was a freaking nightmare, if you guys remember that. So with this in place, you'll be able to see if there's any small areas that need to be trimmed away. Now on this one, really the only thing I see is maybe a millimeter if we're lucky over here. The rest of it looks really good. We'll slide this over and check our cylinder. Basically just do the same thing, flipping our gasket and our dowel pins over to this, and whichever one needs more is the one you want to do first. So if you put this on here, you can see the cylinder is honestly nearly perfect. I don't really know that I would take much of anything off of this. So I may go in here and just smooth the edges just slightly, but honestly guys, this is so close, I'm not even sure it's worth messing with the cases for that little half a millimeter. We're not doing like an ultra high performance build here, and the fact that this platform looks like it was pretty solid out of the box, I think we're just gonna leave the cases as they are. Now if you guys want to see how to do port matching, if you do something like a Banshee, it's wild how like the differences in the cases and the cylinder is crazy, and when you clean those up, it makes a major difference. You can watch the Voodoo Banshee series where I do a cleanup port. It's also in the Wildcat Banshee series. I do the same thing. But like I said, for this one, I think we're just gonna leave the cases alone and I'm gonna go ahead and do our cylinder. One thing I will do though, in the name of pre-work, is put our studs in our cases, just to get that out of the way. Now I had these vapor blasted by Moto Blast. Anytime you have anything blasted, whether it's sand blasted, vapor blasted, or whatever, a lot of times in the thread areas, especially if it's a thread area where it's not an open hole in the sand and or whatever media they use can blow out the other end, a lot of times there's little remnants that are stuck in there. And like if you try to thread one of these studs in, they bind up a little bit. You could force them in if you want, but you really shouldn't do that. So what we have here is a thread chase kit. Oh baby, check this out. Oh. Yeah, man. So this just, it almost looks like taps. Now you basically take these and you thread them in. It cleans up the threads. If there's any gunk or anything in there, it will get rid of all of the garbage. It's not going to re-tap or retrace the threads. It's just going to clean them up. So it's a little less aggressive than if you were to run a tap through there. And basically, this is just going to make it so that these studs will spin in like brand new by hand. So make sure we have the right size. And then you can do these by hand. Or if you're an idiot like me, you can just slowly bring them in. It's not like these are damaged or anything. And then just wait till it gets to the bottom. Don't go crazy hard. There we go. That's bottomed out. Boom. That one is done. And I'm going to come in here with a little compressed air and just make sure that's good and clean. Now check this out. Oh my God. It's still kind of tough. What the hell? That's okay because that's what these are for. It's probably that we've got just a little bit of an imperfection on our stud. We'll make sure we got the right one here. This is M10 times 1.5. We need an M10 times 1.25. That's the one right there. And basically it's the same process, just threading this onto the stud. And you can feel it's a little bit binding right there, but I can even get this with my fingers. It could be even that the zinc coating is a little bit too thick. James really likes to spread it on, and that's a good thing because the thicker the better, really, in my opinion. But with really tight tolerances, including threads, sometimes you have to do this, and it just takes basically it's going to bring it to spec. So there we go, maxed out. I can feel like a little bit of a grittiness, but it's so small that I can do it with my fingers. And watch, this thing, it'll thread right in now. It's just that little bit makes it tough to go in. And you can see it doesn't strip the zinc coating off entirely anyways. It just takes it down so that it'll fit. All right, now check this out. Oh, butter. Like that of a butter. And then last but not least, we're gonna take our Tusk stud removal and installation tool. We've got M10 times 1.25. There's actually two different styles right here, but we're gonna focus on this one right here. You can see there's a little ball bearing in there. You can probably hear it. And then there is a set screw on top. We'll take this and thread it onto our stud. And then once it bottoms up against that ball bearing, it'll start to turn it. Take a 17mm wrench. And we're just gonna snug this. That should be good. Then we back off our set screw. Come on, you bastard. Damn, that was pretty tight. And then this should come right off. Stud is installed. Now I'm actually gonna back that out and I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads because these are steel studs and this is an aluminum case. It will oxidize and it'll be a pain in the ass to remove, just like it was a pain in the ass to remove for me when I took these damn studs out. A lot of people say you have to use red Loctite on them. I've never had an issue with them backing out. I almost always put anti-seize on them and just snug them down. So tools, 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 man. What are you gonna do without them? You can't live without them and you can live with them. That's what I always say about tools. I wanted to stop to take a minute to thank you for making it this far into the video. I also wanted to stop to thank the companies and sponsors that are helping to make this project possible. Both of these Tri-Z's came from Power Sports Nation. Power Sports Nation is the largest parts provider for ATVs and UTVs in the country. If you guys follow the channel, you've probably seen me name drop them quite a few times. Now, if you are looking for parts, I encourage you to go to the Power Sports Nation website. While they did provide the parts for this project, what they specialize in is utility ATVs and side-by-side parts. The search engine on their website works great and it's consistently updated with the new machines and parts that they get into inventory. I'd also like to thank Bonehead Performance Coatings, BBC TRIKES, Rocket Ron Racing, Rocky Mountain ATV, Moto Blast, Hermosi, and Wicked Metal Designs. These are all companies I trust and most of them I use on a regular basis. Links and promo codes will be listed in the description below. If you're enjoying the video so far and looking for a way to help out, giving the video a thumbs up, leaving a comment below, or subscribing to the channel all help out a ton. Products and tools in the video are listed in the description below, and purchasing from those links does help me out a lot. I get a small kickback from that and there's no extra cost to you. And if you're looking to support the channel even further, there is the option to join. All channel members get guaranteed responses to their YouTube comments. All right, guys, I am done talking. Let's get back to the video.
All right, guys, here we go. I've got my porting set up with my little foot pedal here and my favorite bit. I'm not going to do a tutorial on this because I would still consider myself a porting noob, but a couple small tips. One, you definitely want to put a respirator and eye protection on, and also gloves. Sometimes, like the little aluminum shards can get stuck in your hands. I just hate wearing gloves, so I usually don't wear them. And the other thing is, you want to go low and slow. Low speed and nice and slow. The slower you go and the cooler that you keep your tool, the less likely it is to get gummed up. So if you're like a first timer or just practicing, definitely go slow, because you can always take more off, but you can't put it back. Well, actually, and sometimes you can if you have a welder, but yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I will see you guys when it's all done. Wish me luck.
All right, man, there it is. Good bit of work. It took about 4 hours to get done. I think it came out really nicely though. You can see our 2 boost ports in there. Let's see if we can get this thing to focus. Come on, you bastard. I don't know if this light's really gonna help, but you can see there's the old port, and this is the new port right here. They're right about the same size. I actually opened them both up just slightly. And then all of our seams, man, this thing is really not wanting to focus. It's a shame because you can't get an idea of really what I did without seeing it. What the fuck? You can see the seam in there is virtually gone. Raised the exhaust port about 1 millimeter. It didn't actually need 1.5 to be in the appropriate place. I resurfaced the top, traced all of our threads, so I'll be able to stud this thing up, put a new bolt here in our weep hole in the transfers, cleaned all these up. I made these a little bit sharper, but not sharp. I cleaned them up, really. I didn't sharpen them. You don't want these to be a knife edge. Just cleaned up like the walls of the castings and everything. You can see the boost ports from the back side on either side here. This little fitting right here, I smoothed that out because it was kind of protruding into the case. And then the sleeve itself, I didn't knife edge it, I just smoothed it out. That's gonna really help with airflow. And then I had to brand it, man. Check out the exhaust, dude. Look how smooth that is. All nice and opened up. It is the appropriate height for phase 1. And then on the side, I branded it. I put my logo there, and I put phase 1.5 because we're a hybrid in between phase 1 and phase 2, and we're doing a little bit of custom stuff. But these little modifications to this cylinder, if you don't know much about two-stroke performance, that's going to make a big difference, especially in the top end. And I'll show you my cylinder head too. I had this machined down 0.5 millimeters by my buddy Dave Moore. If you guys aren't in the industry or you don't know who Dave is, he's been building two-stroke engines for about 40 years. He's one of the top guys in the industry when it comes to performance, man. The guy's just a beast. He told me when he was looking at this is actually a bad head design. So without getting into too much about how the design of head works, this band right here is called your squish band, and depending on the width of it and the volume of this portion right here, your combustion chamber, that has to do with how fast the fuel will travel and burn inside the cylinder. It has to do with performance and reliability, and apparently this one is prone to be not that reliable, but it will work. It's just, you know, a faulty head design. It was just not the best from the factory. So we'll run it as it is, and we should be okay because we're not going super crazy performance anyways. Throw our studs in real quick. I just want to show you guys how easy this is because, you know, as I'm doing this stuff, I'm learning how to use some of these tools too. And this stud installer tool from Rocky Mountain ATV, this is like one of the first times I've ever used it, and I just discovered it's actually even easier than how I showed before. And we'll thread it on until it stops. Then we'll just take this T-wrench, screw it in by hand, and we'll snug it up. And then you just back it off, and it automatically breaks free the set screw. Before, the last time I was breaking it free using a wrench, it literally just breaks right off. Makes it really, really easy. So I'll be able to thread these in super quickly, whereas before it was kind of a pain in the ass, especially with the double nut trick. Just great tools, man, you know? The more tools I get, the more easy things become. And this is a cheap tool too. I will have this linked in the description below. Crazy how much this cylinder is probably worth right now. Just the cylinder alone, and if you add the piston with it, it's probably worth like $2,000. I'm not even bullshitting you, man. If you go on eBay, and the only reason I know this is because it has taken so long to get it to this point. There's one guy on eBay that sells refurbished Tri-Z cylinders, and they're $1,500. I think it's $1,499 plus tax. So you're looking at like $1,600, and that's not going to be ported. It won't have the extra boost port, and it probably won't be vapor blasted quite as nice as this. So I would definitely say this is like a $2,000 cylinder. It's just crazy. And then if you have the cylinder head, the Cerakote, the zinc coating and stuff, this is not a cheap build. So as far as engine components go, we're pretty much all pre-built. The only thing we need to do is populate the bearings into our center cases. I'm gonna do that on my own. Now, I wanted to do the swing arm, and I unfortunately discovered an issue. So I've got all of our swing arm components laid out here. I've got the linkage, I've got all the bearings, I've even got our bearing carrier all built and stuff, and I have an all balls rebuild kit. What I wanted to do was start off by putting the bearings into our swing arm, and unfortunately, you know, I got this bearing here, and I'm putting it in here, and it's like, dude, it slides right in there. That's no good. So at first I thought that maybe the swing arm was just worn out, and then went into looking a little further, and the plastic bushings that go on the inside, they're not even close to fitting. So I checked out the other swing arm because I'm thinking like maybe is this the wrong swing arm or something, because I know the Yamaha Warrior rear shock can fit on these, and the one Tri-Z actually had a Yamaha Warrior rear shock on it. So I'm like, maybe this is the wrong swing arm. I did some research, checked out the other swing arm from the other Tri-Z that we got, and actually this one, it would fit. Turns out the 85 and the 86, the only 2 years they made the Tri-Z, have different swing arm bearings, and we ordered a kit for 1986. You can actually see there on the label, it says YTZ 250 Tri-Moto 86. So I think I was kind of under the impression that the 85 and 86 are the same, but apparently they're not. So I went ahead, ordered the correct bearings, and we're gonna have to wait for those, but we can move on and finish up the rest of the swing arm. Prime example of why we do this pre-work. If we came down to D-Day and we had the wrong bearings, man, that would stop everything because we'd have to order the bearings and wait a couple days for them. So I'm gonna go ahead and trace all of the threads on the swing arm. When it comes to steel components, I usually use an actual thread tap. I've got heat in the comments before for using these. People say it can ruin the threads and stuff. I don't think that's the case. It definitely can remove a little bit of material, but the key is having a quality tap and not putting any pressure. Let the tap do the work and just glide through the threads, because we're not making new threads, we're just cleaning them. And I've just discovered that these taps tend to work a little bit better than a thread chase, at least on steel components. So take it or leave it. That's just the way that I do it. Like I said though, you just gotta be really easy with it. So come in here and just nice and easy, let the tap do the work. And that's all it's to it. And that's just gonna, probably should go a little bit slower than that actually. Blow these out with air, and they're good to go. Now I can put the chain slider in place and putting a little bit of blue Loctite on here, because I think these fall off on the Tri-Z. And believe it or not, this is a discontinued piece. I forget how much this was. There's somebody remaking them, and there was like 50 bucks for this freaking piece of plastic, which is crazy. But I don't want to lose this thing. So yeah, some blue Loctite, and we'll torque it down to 6.5 foot-pounds. Come back here to our skid plate mount, just like before. Just gonna let it glide. Let the tool do the work. And pretty much most of the stuff coming out is powder coat. Just a little bit of overflow that got in those threads. Now we're good and clean. Not gonna be putting the skid plate on just yet, so I'm just gonna put the bolts in place. And then right here in the middle, there's a swing arm bumper. Got a brand new one right here from Yamaha. Pop this open and put that in place. The old one was freaking thrashed. I think it was actually missing in the one swing arm, but just a little bit of dielectric on this. This just kind of helps it get into place. Spin it around, get it on the edges. Sometimes you can pop these in by finger. Nope, it's all right. Got a punch right here, go right in the center. There we go. And then just spin it, make sure that the lip is seated. And that's good to go. Then we've got a chain guide that goes right in here. I'm gonna sneak in here with my tap and clean these up. Ooh, that was close. Don't hate me too much, guys. This is the chain slider that I actually took off of the Tri-Z. You can see it's in really good shape. There's a small bit of wear in there, you can see it. You won't even see that when the chain's in place though. I felt like
We had to reuse this, dude. It's an OEM Yamaha part. And it just wouldn't make sense to buy a new one. Oh, is it going to fit? It's okay if it's snug. We might have to tap this in place. Same thing with this one. Since we can tighten it down, I'm putting a little bit of blue Loctite on them. And these will go to 10.5 foot-pounds. That's a powder coat. And we've got this rear linkage bolt that goes right through here in the back. Unfortunately, though, because of the powder coat, it doesn't fit through. So this is typical of powder coated parts. Again, we've just got to open those holes up just a little bit because the thickness of the powder coat is actually preventing this bolt from sliding through. This little 90-degree porting tool is absolutely perfect for this job. I've got a little burr in here. You can use a sanding wheel too. This is a pretty inexpensive tool. I think I'm gonna say it was around 60 bucks and it comes in handy a lot. I'll have this linked in the description below, but the 90-degree makes it really easy for getting to certain spots. This one isn't the worst, but some of the other spots on the frame can be tough, but we'll turn this on and just go in here and gently clean that powder coat up. And the last thing we have are these two little grease zerks. I don't think these are OEM. I think somebody added these at some point in time, but I'm not sure. The other swing arm does not have them. So now we're all set as far as the swing arm goes. I've even got my carrier all done and built. Got the chain adjusters on there, all the proper bolts and whatnot. And I even put the bearings in place. You can see the spacer is in there with new zinc on it from Moto Blast. Everything is greased up. You can see these seals, the inner lip is greased. And I even pull the shields off of the bearings when they're brand new and I pack them with grease. You wouldn't believe how under-greased bearings are from the factory, even from a name brand. I've almost never opened one up and found an adequate amount of grease, so it's a good idea to pack those. I've also got the rear brake caliper here. I got a rebuild kit for that, rebuilt it, and it is all vapor blasted by Moto Blast. That thing's ready to rock and roll. Got some fresh EBC pads straight from Rocky Mountain ATV. That thing is going to look so nice when it's all assembled. Now I have the linkage somewhat built. I have the little back portion right here all done. It really is a cool looking piece. All this stuff is the original stuff from 1985, except for this grease zerk. I put a brand new grease zerk in there, but these dust covers, they are the originals, and so is the linkage. All of it was redone by Moto Blast. So James at Moto Blast vapor blasted them and then coated them in a yellow zinc coating. It looks freaking awesome, dude. And we've got the bushings here. These are already loaded, those are done, but we do have to put the ones in this rear wishbone. These bushings are not easy to come by. We're actually reusing the ones that came out because they were nice and tight and they're in good condition. I did manage to get brand new Yamaha OEM seals though. Now installing these things is an absolute breeze if you've got a bench vise, but not everybody's got a bench vise, so we're gonna do it a little bit differently today, and we're gonna use a good old C-clamp from the 60s. So we're just gonna open this bad boy up. I've actually never done it this way, so I don't see why it wouldn't work though. And we'll get our spacer, our brand new pre-owned spacer, and get her lined up and just bring the C-clamp in and just make sure it's nice and straight. Not like that. You know, I think if we flip it around this way, it might be a little bit easier. There we go. Just want to get that started and make sure it's going in straight. Okay, so we're almost home free, but we still have to sink it in just a little bit further. So I've got a socket right here that fits in that groove almost perfectly, and we're going to use that to get her in there the rest of the way. Open this up and make sure we're good and straight. It looks like we got it, and this should bottom out. I think we're all the way in. That's what she said. And there we go. That looks like it's good and seated nice and flush up against that lip. Then we'll take our new seal with the lettering facing outward. And these usually just press right into place. If not, you can take a rubber mallet and kind of tap them. But that's no problem at all. And then we're going to put a little bit of grease on the inner lip of that. But first, I'll get the other side. And this one I'm doing in the vise because it is significantly easier than using the C-clamp. I'm going to put just a little bit of grease in the inner lip of our seals, both sides. In this pin, which we have to reuse as well, but thank God it's in good shape, I'm just putting a very thin layer of grease on here because this does have a grease zerk in the bolt that goes through. You can see the little hole for lubrication. And most of this is going to get stripped off when you push it through the seals anyways. But we'll just roll this in here. Make sure that the lip on your seal does not roll. If it does, you just kind of wiggle it around and make sure that it's good. Punch this through to the other side. What are we hung up on here? Oh, there it goes. Needed a little encouragement. That's actually good though. Tight is good. That's what she said. That feels nice and tight. That is perfect. Take the back portion of our linkage, make sure it's oriented correctly, which in the Tri-Z is facing with the grease zerk up and back, and the little flat portion facing backward as well. This goes up against that bumper that we installed in the swing arm. We'll put this in place and get our hardware in there. We'll pop our bottom bolt in. This is for the lower shock mount. And these I won't tighten down until the machine's together on the ground because suspension components you're supposed to tighten when the weight of the machine is on the bolts. I also want to build our rear brake assembly. So it attaches right to the foot peg. This is our nice aftermarket triple row peg made by Wicked Metal Designs. That's my buddy Rob Wicks again. So he's making the grab bar and the foot pegs. Really nice pieces. It's got a stainless steel, I guess, peg right here for the brake pedal to slide right on there. Don't have to worry about that rusting or anything. So we're gonna go ahead and build the tip of this because it is actuating. This is when it's nice to have a few on hand because I can look at this and see how this was built. I can see there's a little plastic bushing in there, and I can see the type of spring because I actually almost put the wrong spring on here when I was putting this together because the schematic doesn't show a breakdown of this. They sell the foot brake as one whole assembly, and again, there is that mini texture on the foot brake. It's going to be really nice. Then we've got our all refinished OEM stuff here. It's going to look really nice with the contrast. Here is our plastic bushing. This goes in here, and we can see the way our spring goes. Looks like it goes like this. This will pop in here with the bushing inside. And then we just have to fish our peg through here, or pin, I guess it would be. There we go. We've got a washer that goes on the bottom and then a cotter pin. And that was not easy. The action's really good, but I don't like that it rattles. And the other one's the same way. You can see the play there. All right, let's try this. We've got a thin washer, or thick washer, and then a thin washer. We'll slide our new cotter pin in there. That's much better. I'll put a little bit of grease. Slide this bad boy in place. We've got a washer. And then our E-clip. So now our foot peg and foot brake are good to go. That can just be put on when we do the build. So as far as pre-work goes, we're pretty much there, man. We did a lot of stuff today, really monotonous, little tedious things, but it's all a part of the build process. A lot of times people, they see a build when it's done and they're like, man, I'd love to do that. And they don't realize all the little tiny things that go into it. And it's really not that big of a deal, but it's usually very time consuming. But a lot of this stuff I did off camera too, like setting up this triple tree clamp, pressing in our stem, putting on a new bearing. The tape down here is because I've already packed it with grease and everything. I repacked the rear silencer, which is actually a freaking nightmare, dude. This style of silencer with the, the pipe that's kind of like offset to the top is really hard to pack because all the packing gets jammed up top and it just doesn't want to fit. Just a pain in my freaking ass. But all the bearings and everything, like I said before, packed with grease and stuff and just time consuming. The entire frame. This took a while matching up all the bolts and stuff, making sure that all the holes were nice and clear. And then I'm not done yet, man, because I still have to do stuff like this freaking headlight housing, dude. This thing is like the nightmare that never stops nightmaring. I just want to wake up already. I actually considered having one of these made out of carbon fiber when I was at Exotic Car Gear in the last video. If you guys are following the Corvette series, they do all kinds of custom carbon fiber stuff. They said they could do it, but the chances of this piece coming back in good shape is they were kind of slim because this is old plastic. It's from 1985. It's actually warped a little bit, and just plastic is malleable. They said to make a mold for the carbon, it's likely that they may possibly destroy this in making the carbon one. And this is such a rare piece. I was like, you know what, man, let's just roll with this one for now. So yeah, I have it all fit up with the LEDs and stuff, but I got to strip this damn thing, and I think we're gonna have to paint it. It appears, I took some of the paint off underneath. It's not as nice as I thought it might be. I will get it done though, and when we do the final assembly video, you guys will see this thing. It's gonna look like brand spanking new. So this is actually really exciting. D-Day is right around the corner. We'll start with the engine build ASAP. I think we have everything for that. So that's gonna be probably the next Tri-Z video. I appreciate all you guys. If you enjoyed this small, monotonous, tedious work, let me know in the comment section below. That means a lot, guys, because if this is boring, I'm just gonna move it to stuff that I continue to do off camera, but I know a lot of guys, they just enjoy watching the process and stuff. So you guys let me know in the comment section below if you did enjoy this video in any way, shape, or form, and you wanna see more videos like this. Remember to give me that thumbs up, that helps out a ton, and consider subscribing. We just passed the 200,000 subscriber mark. That is freaking awesome, man. I saw in the comments, oh, nothing but love for the Corvette, man. There were a couple people concerned saying like, oh, you're not doing ATVs anymore. I don't plan to discontinue doing power sports. I still want to do quads, dirt bikes, side-by-sides, everything. Pretty much all things horsepower. I'm kind of like changing the slogan of the channel. I never didn't like cars and stuff like that, but it definitely was dominated by ATV videos. I just don't want you guys to think that we're not going to be continuing with that. In fact, I just got just ordered about $6,000 worth of 250R parts. We're going to be building a drag racing 250R. I'm not going to say any more about that, but that's happening very soon. So I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.